Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, welcome back to the channel and I hope you've all been doing well. It looks like rumors and leaks have come out surrounding some new GPUs that could be released later this year or perhaps early next year that NVIDIA will add to their RTX 30 series of graphics cards. As all of you guys might know, officially there are only 3 graphics cards that were announced so far, those being the RTX 3090, 3080, and 3070. Those graphics cards target the enthusiast, high-end, and mid-range market, or low high-end depending on how you see it, because calling 499 mid-range is debatable. If you go back and look at previous generations, there's obviously been way more cards in the series than just 3. I mean, with the Turing-based GPUs, there were like 5 or 6 different graphics cards, but then we had the Super and Ti variants come out, and we had the 16 series, which then ended up adding a lot more SKUs to the entire generation. So it's safe to say that NVIDIA isn't done releasing graphics cards, and there will be plenty more to come that will target different market segments. The biggest market segment that desperately needs new SKUs is the entry-level and mid-range market. Consumers who are looking to only spend anywhere from $150 to $350. But there's also been some rumors of NVIDIA working on a new high-end GPU to directly take on the RX 6900 XT at the $999 price point. Focusing on the former, in one of my previous videos I discussed some information that Gigabyte shared on Twitter, a well-known hardware leaker, and they mentioned 2 GPU SKUs NVIDIA had planned to launch in the next couple of months or early next year. These 2 graphics cards would be based on the GA106 chip, powered by the Ampere architecture, with the first one being the RTX 3060 with 3840 CUDA cores, and the second card being the RTX 3050 Ti with 3584 CUDA cores. These naming SKUs make sense, and you shouldn't expect any middle ground GPUs or a 2600 series either. Like I had explained previously, the only reason why NVIDIA had to make non-RTX Turing-based GPUs was because those old chips were just too small and previous generation RTX performance just wasn't fast enough, and if they had even made, say, an RTX 2050 Ti with RT cores, it really wouldn't have mattered at all, since even the RTX 2060 would struggle real hard with ray tracing enabled at lower resolutions like 1080p. Ray tracing is a very performance tax heavy visual setting, and if you had seen my RTX 3080 ray tracing performance test video, then you'll know that even at 4K it struggled pretty hard, but with the RTX 30 series with improved ray tracing cores and higher amount of RT cores included within the GPU, you can expect the lower end cards to be capable of doing ray tracing at lower resolutions with acceptable frame rates. Plus, with the addition of DLSS, it does help alleviate performance drops. It should go without saying though, but nobody should be expecting a hypothetical 3050 or 3060 to be doing ray tracing at 4K. Anyways, as an extension to these rumors, Gigabyte also said that the RTX 3060 may have 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, and the 3050 Ti will have 6 gigabytes. Now, of course, take these statements with a grain of salt, but just hearing that really does perplex me, as that would mean a mid-range GPU would have more VRAM than NVIDIA's quote-unquote flagship GPU, the 3080, that has 10 gigabytes, although that one has the newer, faster GDDR6X memory. But I was surprised to hear this, not surprised in a negative way or anything, but rather I'd be happy to see that as the more VRAM we can get, the better. But I just thought it was a bit weird if a mid-range card had more VRAM than a more expensive GPU in the same series. However, I think this might be one of those knee-jerk reaction type of moments from NVIDIA where they're just trying to be proactive about countering AMD with a mid-range card with a lot of VRAM that'll look appealing to the masses. Because if you think about it, when AMD unveiled the RX 6000 series, high-end ones such as the 6800 and 6800 XT had more VRAM than their NVIDIA counterparts such as the 3070 and 3080 respectively. And even though the 6900 XT only had 16 compared to the 3090's 24GB memory buffer, it was still $500 cheaper. So when eventually AMD releases a 6700 XT or 6700 targeting the $400-ish market, I speculated that they would perhaps come with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. There were some rumors a while back that the 3060 would again only have 6 gigabytes of VRAM, which even for a mid-range card wouldn't have been acceptable in 2020, and I said that I would have at least liked to see 8 gigabytes, because if that was or is the case, then NVIDIA would once again be put to shame by AMD by having lower amount of VRAM, and if AMD carries over the Infinity Cache design to the lower tier SKUs, which I'm sure they will, then they'll definitely come off as more appealing. But hey, if they release a 12GB RTX 3060 for around $350, I'm all for it. Now, since we're on the topic of these lower end models, Gigabyte also had recently shared a bit of details for another model, this being the RTX 3050 non-TI model based on the GA107 chip, so the smallest Ampere GPU in the lineup. This will supposedly have 2304 CUDA cores with a 90-watt TGP. Not much else is known, but I suspect this card will probably be released with either 6 or 4 gigabytes of memory. Now, when compared to the previous gen 1650 Super, which had 1280 CUDA cores, the 3050 will have 80% more, but also keep in mind that with Ampere, NVIDIA doubled the amount of CUDA cores. But still, for an entry-level card, that definitely is a lot of CUDA cores. In regards to pricing, I feel like the 3050 will probably target the $150 to $200 market segment, and the 3050 Ti will come in at around that $200 to $250 market. Performance-wise, this card's main focus should be for 1080p gaming, esport titles, and as you probably know, it doesn't really take much to run a lot of these kinds of games like CSGO, Rainbow Six, League of Legends, etc. So I feel like for budget gamers, it should hopefully be a decent option. I'm just wondering, will these cards finally be worthwhile upgrades now for people who have been stuck with GTX 1060s or RX 470s for like the past 4 years? Now, the last bit of news or rumors I wanted to cover follow a topic which I discussed in my previous video in regards to the possible RTX 3080 Ti, a high-end graphics card. This card would essentially just be a 20GB RTX 3090 and will probably slot in between the 3090 and 3080, set to take on AMD's RX 6900 XT. Now, a Chinese website known as KHEPC Hardware posted an article stating that NVIDIA would be launching a new high-end graphics card in January for $999, which probably will be the 3080 Ti. The specifications they mentioned line up exactly with what Gigabyte posted, although who knows, they could just be regurgitating their information. I haven't heard of these guys before, so take their information with a grain of salt. However, it would be plausible that NVIDIA could release this new high-end GPU and even the other SKUs that were talked about earlier in the video in January, because there will still be a CES happening. Although it's just going to be a virtual one, but you can expect there to be major companies like NVIDIA and AMD to be participating there, and will probably be making some big announcements. But I can't say that I didn't assume that NVIDIA would eventually release a graphics card in between the 3080 and 3090. I mean, with there being such a huge gap in between the two in regards to price and memory specs, a 3080 Ti with 20GB at $999 easily fits into the series. This card would of course be targeting the RX 6900 XT for gamers, so it'll definitely be enticing in the sense that if you're willing to spend $1,000 for a GPU, then the 3080 Ti seems more appealing, as you'll get more VRAM and better ray tracing performance along with DLSS and all those other features. Although performance-wise, I'm not expecting it to be drastically faster than a 3080, which will be disappointing to see, as traditionally the X80 Ti cards have generally had a noticeable performance bump or gap over the non-Ti X80 class cards. There was a pretty big gap in performance between the 980 and 980 Ti, 1080 and 1080 Ti, and so on. So this will be the first generation where the Ti class card doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense to buy unless you desperately need 20GB of VRAM but don't want to pay $3090 like prices. But I guess this was a given considering the underwhelming performance in gaming from the 3090. The other elephant in the room is that hardly anyone will be excited to buy or be looking forward to these new GPUs if NVIDIA can't sort out their supply issues. They're still having issues, and retailers are still having issues trying to fulfill orders that were placed from launch, which at this point is just getting ridiculous as we're now nearing that 2-month mark since release. With lots of retailers I've talked to here in Canada, they have been periodically getting shipments, but it's really only been a handful of cards while the queue just keeps on growing and growing and growing. So not many people are going to be excited about these new GPUs that they won't really be able to buy. It's just a bad situation overall, and by announcing new GPUs into the stack, it's not like it's going to improve the situation anymore. But we'll see what happens. Keep your eyes peeled. Lots of developments and hardware releases to be looking forward to in the coming weeks and months, so stay tuned. I hope you guys found this video to be informative and helpful. Let me know your thoughts down below. Check out the video description on ways to support the channel and for my other videos. If you guys are interested in more content like this, then make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.